So I just had a meeting with a client here in their office, and this is a creative individual filmmaker, and she was curious about a number of things. One of the things we talked about was how to communicate creativity to a non-creative audience. So it's very interesting because the challenge that a lot of creative professionals have. How do you describe the concept, why you're making certain decisions in a way that's going to be interesting and relevant to that particular audience? So one thing that we talked about, very important, is to understand the audience itself. I mean, that's just basics, the fundamentals, right? To understand what are their goals, their needs, their desires, what are their challenges, what are their major projects that they're trying to work on, and being able to frame your creative pitch or presentation in that context. Being able to discuss the tangible payoff for that particular audience is important. So in this case, she's a filmmaker pitching a project to the Department of Tourism, as well as the Department of Arts and Culture in a city. So at the municipal level, what is the mayor concerned with? What are the what board of directors of this particular department concerned with? Obviously they're focused on getting more tourism in the city. They're focused on getting foot traffic, good exposure, positive exposure for the city, marketing, and all that. So being able to talk about those things is important, incorporate those into your pitch. But really the main focus for a creative person who's trying to convey what their creativity is all about is to take the audience through the journey of how you designed and how you developed this particular project. If you look at the really great creative communicators, Joanna Gaines is a big one that I emphasize a lot because she's probably one of the best, if not the best, in terms of national exposure interior designer. You can even look at Project Runway and the way the fashion designers describe their work and their creative process. There's a lot of specific things you can learn just from them. Talk about your inspiration. Talk about how you decided on those particular colors, on those shapes, on those textures. Where did it come from? What was the moment of inspiration? What was the specific experience that led to that flash of insight? Talk about the goal, the objective of your specific project here. So if you're a fashion designer, the goal is to make a dress that is versatile enough that a woman can wear it in a professional setting to a professional meeting, but also can go, wear it in a casual setting on date night or whatever the case may be. If you're talking about interior design, my client wanted a new kind of living room that was comfortable, welcoming, but also very chic and very high-end. And so that was the goal that they set out for us when we began this interior design process. So talk about that. That helps to frame it, and that helps the audience to understand where you're coming from, and it gives you a foundation for the decisions that you later made in terms of the actual design elements. Then talk about the process itself. Don't get too bogged down in the details of, we cut half an inch off of the drywall before attaching it to this piece of the, those specific things don't really matter. People don't care about that, but they do care about, just in general, how the design evolved, right? From day 1 to 2 to 3 over the course of weeks or months. What were the major decisions that you implemented? What were the materials that you chose and why? How did those materials relate to the ultimate end product? How did you come to the decision to sacrifice certain elements, let's say for cost or budgetary concerns, and to include other elements that were particularly high priority for the client, for example? So take them through that process, because that helps the audience, non-creative audience, to understand how you went from point A to point B. So we have the inspiration, we have the specific goal and objective of this particular project, we have the process of how it evolved and how you actually built it out. Again, keeping it at a high level, don't get bogged down into too fine details, but something that the audience can kind of understand the work that you put in. It's important that they understand that you really have put in a lot of work here, because when we, as the consumer, see a creative output, we see some kind of design, whether it's a logo, whether it's a interface, a UI or UX design, we don't know all the work that went into that, right? we only see the surface. It's like an iceberg. So everything beneath the surface, that's where you want to kind of convey some of that. That's something that's interesting for audiences to be aware of, and they will appreciate the design that much more. I took an art class, a medieval European art class in college, and I learned so much about the various elements and motifs and the narratives and the storytelling of what went into those works of art. Because if you don't have any education about art or how art works, you're going to look at those pieces of art and they're very beautiful aesthetically as you look at them, but you don't quite understand the narrative and the goals and the objectives of how the artists were thinking. So when you can understand that background information, it helps you to actually appreciate the art a lot more. So it's the exact same thing with interior design or fashion or film or an art installation. And then the final component is to talk about the tangible payoff. So that goes back to the original issue of understanding your audience and what their goals are. What are the objectives for this government department or for this corporate entity that you're working for? What are the specific tangible payoffs that you should highlight and that your work is actually going to contribute to, right? So whether it's tourist dollars or whether it's more brand loyalty or whether it's more engagement on the app, whatever the case may be, that way the audience can see it's not just aesthetically pleasing, it's not just pretty and interesting to look at and fascinating and different and unique, but there's actually some kind of specific reason why we should go ahead with this project or why we should appreciate the work that you as the creative person have put into this. All right. So those are some thoughts in terms of creative articulation and creative public speaking and presentation skills for creative people and how they can convey their creativity to a non-creative audience. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.